Hello, Astro folks. Let's talk about Pluto. It's going to be brief because there's not a lot known about Pluto yet. Um, that should change pretty soon. Ooh. And it's also going to be brief because Pluto is not really a planet. It's now considered amongst a different class of solar system objects, and so I could really group Pluto into a wider discussion of all of those objects. But since Pluto used to be considered a planet, I think it has some historical significance, and so I'm going to give it its own little treatment. But yeah, it's currently considered a trans-Neptunian object, basically an object out beyond Neptune's orbit. As we'll see, Neptune's considered a planet because it cleared out the area and space near it, and so if you're a trans-Neptunian object, you're going to be outside of that cleared zone. It's also considered a Kuiper belt object. The Kuiper belt is a belt zone of objects orbiting way out in the far reaches of the solar system with a bunch of icy objects and other sort of smaller objects out there. And yeah, so because of Pluto's similarities to these other objects, it was demoted as a planet. Currently, this is the best view we have of Pluto with the awesome Hubble telescope. But that should change soon, in a year and a half or so. July of 2015, the New Horizons probe will reach Pluto and should take some really exciting pictures of that planetary. No, that not planetary. See, I'm stuck in the old mode. I grew up thinking Pluto was a planet because that's what it was, a planet back then. So sometimes it's hard for me to break that habit. But anyway, yeah, New Horizons should take some good photos and collect some good data of this little system here, Pluto and Charon and some other of the moons orbiting Pluto. Pluto, by the way, is not even the largest trans-Neptunian object. Currently, it's thought that Eris is a larger trans-Neptunian object. So, if that's the case, if you're a Pluto must be a planet diehard, why not have Eris as a planet then? And some people say, yeah, bring it in, come on, plenty of room for a bigger family of planets in the solar system. But there's some other differences. There's basically, when they were kind of discussing this whole deal of like what's a planet, what's not a planet, they came up with three criteria to be a planet. You have to orbit the sun, duh. You have to be big enough to be spherical. As you saw, the moons of Mars, for example, are tiny, so they weren't big enough to become spheres, kind of like asteroid shaped. It's not even a shape, but just irregular. And the third criteria is that you have to have cleared out the neighborhood of other bodies, whether that means capture them as a moon or just they crash into that body, or they just gravitationally whip them out into other parts of the solar system. Somehow, if a planet is a planet, it has cleared out the path of other objects. Now, to me, that's a little deceiving, because is there really a cut and dry, like, bam's boundary where everything's been cleared out? I actually think this should really be changed to is clearing out its neighborhood of other bodies, but with the asterisk that it's mostly cleared out, because there's still a few little objects here and there. It's no way you can clear everything out, but for the most part, collisions now are pretty rare. Whereas if you look at like the Moon and Mars, you see lots of craters on there. Those are from most of those are from a much more distant past. Anyway, Pluto only satisfies two of them. It orbits the sun, and it's big enough to be spherical. And so because of that, because it satisfies two out of the three, it's to appease some people, it's often called the dwarf planet, a dwarf planet. If that's the case, though, then maybe there's other dwarf planets around the solar system. But it hasn't cleared out its neighborhood. So, and there's some other things that I think actually make it less likely to be a planet. For example, its orbital property. If you look, so here's the sun, and the dark blue orbit is Neptune's orbit. Nice and regular. It's elliptical. It's a little bit off center, but it's sort of within the plane of the solar system. All the other planets orbit pretty regularly within this plane. We've seen that multiple times in eyes in the solar system. Pluto is tilted quite a bit, 17 degrees from that plane. So that is something it doesn't share in common with the other 8 planets. In addition, it's a highly eccentric orbit and highly off-center. So actually, at some point in its orbit, it's actually closer to the Sun than Neptune. Whereas most of the time, it's farther away, and sometimes it's really far away, much farther away than Neptune. But so really the planets are planets. You go Mercury is first, then Venus, then Earth, then Mars, and that they don't trade places. It's Earth is the 3rd planet always. Mars is the 4th planet. Jupiter is 5th. So yeah, maybe Neptune was a little mad and says, "I don't want to be trade places with Pluto. I'm the 8th planet. Pluto's the 9th planet, or nothing." Anyway, so that's really it. Pluto does have a moon. Actually, has multiple moons, but one appreciable moon, Charon. We saw Charon in the Uranus-Neptune video. I don't know if you remember it. Let me bring it back real quick. Yeah, in this video, actually, this slide. Oops, let me make this fit to width. Yeah, so here's Charon. It doesn't show Pluto. Pluto's bigger than Charon, but Charon's a pretty big moon. There was a bit of a worry because as we've gotten closer to Pluto, we've discovered that it has other satellites orbiting around other moons, and so it's thought, uh-oh, when we sent New Horizons out and set up its trajectory, we didn't plan on other bodies really being there. So is it going to collide with these other moons? So it looks like it's pretty safe, pretty good, good to go at this point, but could be something we have to deal with in the next year or so. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say about Pluto. If you were taking this class in like 2 years, it's going to be a lot more to say about Pluto. But until then, keep your eyes open in the news for the New Horizons rendezvous. And see you next time.